Hello and most welcome to 1785 of the series. We would today start with a new article, Kripke on Wittgenstein. It would be very interesting to take a bit deeper look into what Wittgenstein and Kripke have in common. This is yet one more article from the author Warren Goldfarb. Kripke on Wittgenstein on rules. There's no doubt that Wittgenstein thought the topic of rule following to be important. Nearly 40 sections of the philosophical investigations are devoted to it, as are large swatches of the manuscripts published as remarks on the foundations of mathematics. Its relevance to Wittgenstein's philosophy of mathematics was emphasized early on by Michael Dummett, but only recently has it received significant attention in the less specialized context of the investigations. That is, with respect to questions of meaning and intentionality. This recent attention has, to a large extent, been engendered by Saul Kripke's exposition of Wittgenstein, first presented publicly at the 1976 Wittgenstein Colloquium in London, Ontario. And laid out more expansively in his recent book, Wittgenstein on Rules and Private Language. Kripke reads Wittgenstein to be mounting a skeptical challenge to the notion of following a rule, and thereby also to the notion of meaning a word in a particular particular way. And then to be providing a solution to the challenge that exceeds too much of the skepticism in it. This solution, it turns out, has direct and far-reaching consequences, including the impossibility of a private language and the refutation of many traditional theories of meaning. So construed, Wittgenstein's remarks on rule following become the central and basic argument of the investigations. Indeed, they form, in an almost deductive sense, the foundation of Wittgenstein's later philosophy. Kripke's reading is unquestionably a tour de force. It is sharply and forcefully drawn, couched in terms readily accessible to a wide philosophical audience, and executed with great brio. Nonetheless, there are important questions to be raised about both its accuracy to Wittgenstein and its success as an independent argument. Suspicions on the former score may arise from Kripke's view of the structure of investigations. On that view, the 184 sections that precede the remarks on rule following must be taken as mere ground clearing. These sections include the discussions of meaning and reference, family resemblance and universals, and understanding. Kripke's characterization of these markedly underestimates their intent and force. Moreover, given the strength Kripke imputes to his central argument, it is unclear that any ground clearing should even be required. Further suspicions come from Kripke's lack of detailed exegesis of the sections devoted to rule following. Much is based on a handful of them, specifically around paragraph 200. Others are cited, but often with no attention to the contexts in which they appear. Little is made, for example, of paragraphs 203 and 242, which treat relations among the notions of rule, compulsion, agreement, identity, and logic. To a considerable extent, however, an assessment of Kripke's accuracy to Wittgenstein will rest on the attractiveness of the whole package Kripke presents, on whether at least vaguely Wittgensteinian themes are clarified and woven into a compelling argument. Hence, I shall largely be concerned to examine Kripke's skeptical challenge and solution of their own. I hope to raise some doubts about Kripke's argument and about the distinction it claims to provide between language and what Kripke calls private language. These doubts do, to my mind, undermine Kripke's claim to represent Wittgenstein on the positive side, though they may suggest a direction in Wittgenstein's thought rather different from that exhibited in Kripke's reading. Kripke sees Wittgenstein as raising a skeptical challenge to our assertions that the person means some word in a certain way. The challenge arises from the fact that everything about the person's previous utterances and performances is compatible with different ascriptions of meaning. Thus, my taking Walter Cronkite to mean chair by chair is challenged by alleging that he might mean something else, something that would have led him to use chair as if he meant chair in the past, but would lead him to use chair differently in the future. This possibility is elaborated by the proposal of bizarre alternative ascriptions of Goodmanesque, Grue-like nature. In short, the finitely many uses of the word made to date do not fix what is meant, nor would verbal elaborations help, since they themselves would be subject to the same sort of question. So far, it is hard to see any force in the challenge. The ascription of meaning with which we start is supposed to be jeopardized by noting a possibility that it might turn out mistaken. Yet there is such a possibility, yet that there is such a possibility is less evident than Kripke assumes. For it is far from clear that any odd behavior that Cronkite might suddenly start exhibiting would show that in, say, July 1984, he did not mean chair by chair. The point is just Austin's about the alleged predictive nature of factual statements. And I suspect Wittgenstein would agree. Even if we grant there are possible future responses that would undo current ascription, all Kripke offers is a bare possibility. As such, it provides no reason to think that it is in any real sense possible that Cronkite does not mean chair by chair, and hence no reason to doubt that he does. We do, after all, engage in elaborate, articulated practices of ascribing meanings to people. We can and do justify our ascriptions when the need arises. We clear up obscurities and so on. This is our position at the start. To have force any challenge to our ascriptions must have weight enough to move us from our present ordinary position. A serious skeptic must accept a burden of proof and provide some ground from which the attack proceed. The situation here is no different from that with skepticism of more familiar kinds. A skeptical problem cannot be assumed to arise just from the logical possibility of error. To take it that skepticism about meaning can so arise is to agree to jejune global skepticism about all our knowledge and perhaps all our concepts. in any case, nothing has yet been invoked that is special about ascriptions of meaning. To be sure, more is forthcoming from Kripke. His challenge constantly takes the form of asking what fact it is about Walter Cronkite that constitutes his meaning cha by cha. This formulation shows that the skeptical challenge is not intended to operate epistemologically. Rather, it rests on ontological considerations. In questions whether, if everything there is were laid out before us, we could read off the correct ascriptions of meaning to people. That is why Kripke is content with raising bare possibilities of deviant ascriptions. If nothing in the world settles an issue between one or another possibility, then we may conclude that there is nothing to be settled. Issues of whether there are any particular grounds for doubting an ascription simply do not enter. Thus, it is the notion of the fact of everything there is that is to provide the ground of the challenge. The weight that this notion must bear may perhaps be clarified by a brief reflection on how the challenge would appear to Gottlob Frege. Frege holds that we have no notion of objective fact apart from our ability to reason, our mastery of logic. it is only against the backdrop of logic of any kind, questions of any kind can be intelligibly raised. Now our mastery of logic presupposes our understanding of language, or as Frege terms it, our immediate access to the realm of sense. Consequently, we can never be in a position to question generally whether our words and statements have sense. Frege's notion of fact, in short, precludes any perspective from which to challenge our immediate access to the realm of sense. That is, to challenge the existence of semantic facts. Obviously, I do not intend here to access the contingency of Frege's metaphysics and the view of logic undergirding it. I wish only to note how this conception of fact serves to turn aside Kripke's challenge. The closest Kripke comes to treating Frege's position is in his dismissal of irreducible meaning facts. This dismissal is philosophically tendentious and has no force against Frege. For Kripke's characterization of irreducible meaning facts rests on a particular conception of the factual. His exposition says nothing about how this conception is given to us. It turns out, though, that the conception Kripke exploits is basically physicalistic. He talks of overt behavior, brain states and the like, and makes full use of causal notions. The physicalism is modified by the admission of introspectable raw fields and their felt qualities. And there I round up. Felt qualities was the last one. Summary will happen when I get a bit more into the text. Thank you very much and have a very pleasant morning, day or afternoon. Bye bye for now.